Greetings and salutations, my dearest friends. My name is Samantha, and today we're going to be talking about a few historicals that I read recently and did not like. I'm already sweating. I don't know why I put on a sweater for this video. You guys know I don't like trashing romance books because I feel like people do that enough already. I just want to bring a lot of positivity to reading romance and enjoying happily ever afters and finding absolutely no shame in reading historical romances. I really like sharing the good books with you guys because that's always so much more fun to talk about. But in my journey of reading historical romances, I have read a few that aren't great. So let's talk about them, friends. If you like any of these books, power to you. I am so glad you like these books. They just didn't jive with me, and I'm gonna explain why. The funny thing about this list, I have 5 books in total. I have read other books from almost all of these authors, and I have liked other books by them. So that just proves that sometimes you will find a book by an author that you just don't jive with, but maybe there's another book in their backlist that you will like. So I will also be recommending some good books in this video, but mainly we're going to be talking about the bad. Listen, I read these books so you don't have to, okay? I'm a saint, truly. Let's hop in. I'm stalling because I don't like being negative, but some of these books, they're real bad. Real bad. Okay, the first book, say it with me, friends, Fires of Winter by Johanna Lindsay. I have not been quiet about my distaste for this book at all. I didn't enjoy it. I think when I first read it, I gave it a 2 stars, but I was just trying to be nice. It's truly a 1 star. Negative stars. I'm to notice a theme of books that I don't like, and one of my just like hard rules when it comes to books, one of the number one things I cannot stand is if a book has consent issues or dubious consent. I do not call books trash. I really hate when people refer to books like that, especially romance books. Fires of Winter was just a trash fire. So let me go ahead and just explain the plot real quick, and then I will explain why I didn't like it. I have a whole reading vlog where I read this book and told you guys about my thoughts. I will link it down below. The story follows our main characters, Garrick and Lady Brenna. This is the first in a Viking series. So our main character, Lady Brenna, grows up knowing that she is going to be betrothed to a Viking. Her father made a deal when she was really young because the Vikings were raiding the towns and destroying the towns. Her father made a deal that his daughter could marry one of the Viking heirs. Obviously, the Vikings did not keep their end of the bargain, so they ended up raiding the town, killing lots of people anyways, and then capturing Lady Brenna and keeping her as prisoner. They have no intention of marrying her, but just keeping her as prisoner, which I mean, just the premise of that, you can see how problematic that is. Our main character, Garrick, is just a big ol' oaf, thinks everything belongs to him, and this book has major consent issues. Basically, the entire book is a trigger warning for sexual assault. Each chapter starts off with sexual assault, and then it kind of just goes from there throughout the book. So no, I didn't enjoy it. There wasn't anything remotely romantic to me about this couple. I normally don't do spoilers in my videos, but I don't recommend any of these books, so I'm gonna have to talk a little bit why. Our conflict of the book just resolved really quickly in like less than 3 pages. For so many characters that were villains like throughout the entire book, had no character arc, and then suddenly they were decent human beings, which didn't really make any sense. I can't think of many redeeming qualities for this book. Definitely not someone who thinks that if it was published a long time ago, it automatically just gets like a blanket excuse for all of the problematic things that are inside the book. No. Again, I have read so many old school historicals that don't have that consent issue, so I have a love-hate relationship with some Johanna Lindsay books. I have read some that are not so great, and then I have read some that I actually really enjoy. Johanna Lindsay has a extensive backlist. If you want to read something by Johanna Lindsay, she does have a lot of great novels despite that one book. So I would recommend Gentle Rogue. This is the 3rd book in the Mallory series. The Mallory series, I would say, is her most popular series. A lot of people love it. So this is kind of a pirate romance if you're into that. The main character was betrothed, but she has no idea where the man that she was supposed to be married went, so she goes looking for him. Our main character is American, by the way. She goes to London to find her betrothed, and turns out he really wasn't a great guy, didn't really hold up on their promise, and is married and has kids. That's not a spoiler. That is like in the beginning of the book. She desperately wants to get home and hops on the first ride available, like a working ship. So because she's a girl, she wouldn't have really been allowed to go on the ship, but so she pretends to be a boy, ends up being the cabin boy for our main hero. So they are definitely in close quarters, kind of like a close proximity romance. It also has a bit of an age gap, and I just really liked our hero. He was really funny, and I love the way he teased her. And our heroine was like that perfect balance of being very independent, but also allowing the relationship to flourish. So I did like that book if you are looking for a recommendation by Johanna Lindsay. All right, let's just get the controversial book out of the way. I have 2 Julia Quinn novels that I didn't like. Don't hate me. I know. Julia Quinn is such an amazing author, and I do have books that I've read from her and I've liked, but there are some that I didn't like. First one I'm going to talk about is The Sum of All His Kisses by Julia Quinn. This is part of like the Smith series. I can't remember what series it is. I think it's the 3rd book in the series. The funny thing is when I posted that I had read this book, a lot of people were like, ooh, not the best Julia Quinn book to start with. And I was like, yeah, I wish I would have known that going in. This is an enemies to lovers romance. This follows our main characters Hugh and Sarah. Hugh is a mathematician, like he's really good with numbers, he's really analytical and smart, but he made a very dumb decision to get in a duel, and this isn't a spoiler, it happens in the beginning of the book, but he makes a dumb decision while he's playing cards, and he ends up getting in a duel that leaves his leg really injured, and then his father ends up completely blaming the person who was in the duel, even though Hugh totally started it, and it was just like all of this drama. The other person in that duel had to leave because Hugh's father was really just like out for him with like a vengeance, and that happened to be Sarah's cousin. Sarah in the beginning of the book just hates Hugh because of the duel. She hates him because she feels like she has not been able to find a suitable husband because of all the drama that surrounded the duel and her family, and it's real petty. I think that's why I didn't like this book. It is so petty why Sarah doesn't like Hugh. I think it was so petty because Hugh and the other person in the duel, I can't remember his name, they made up. Like they eventually kind of just talked things out and sorted things out. Everybody was alive. Everybody was fine. The other person in the duel who Hugh shot at completely forgave him. Everyone in the family forgave him, but Sarah was like holding on to this grudge the entire book, and that just drove me crazy. To be completely honest, that is the main reason why I didn't like this book. Sarah was incredibly judgmental, incredibly petty, and there really wasn't any true romance to this book. I just didn't start being nice to each other and having romance and sexual tension until like the very, very, very end of the book, and by that time I was over it. So I gave this book a 2 out of 5 stars. I think Hugh was a great hero, but he didn't belong with Sarah. Okay, they needed to be with separate people. Another Julia Quinn that I didn't like, and this is gonna make some people mad. I gave The Duke and I 2 out of 5 stars. Yeah, yikes. Here's the thing. That scene at the end, if you read the book, you know what scene I'm talking about. I don't like books that have consent issues. I have to explain and reason and rationalize a sex scene with our main characters. That's a problem. It has some consent issues. Other people adore this book, and there are so many great things about this book. Simon, our main character, chef's kiss. He is amazing. Stutter. I have never read a historical hero that has a stutter, so I actually did appreciate that. The family dynamic between the Bridgerton family is just beautiful. I love the way that Julia Quinn wrote that. I can totally see this being an amazing series, and I'm super excited to read it. But the first book has major consent issues that I personally cannot look over. There are a ton of trigger warnings for this book and consent issues, and I feel like you should absolutely never ever pressure someone to have children like that. Having children is such a life-changing thing, and to basically force someone into that, I have a problem with it. I really do. I feel like a lot of people tend to kind of like brush it to the side because Daphne is a woman. If the roles were reversed and Simon did what Daphne did to him, people would lose their minds. People would lose their minds. It would not be okay. It would not be accepted. So I definitely don't think it's like okay to have this double standard. And I think that's what really bothered me a lot too. I feel so bad that I didn't like this book because there are so many great things about this book, but because consent is like my most important thing when it comes to reading, that one scene just changed the entire book for me. Unfortunately, Daphne, I didn't like her. I just think she was incredibly selfish. There was really no character growth for her, and she never really apologized for what she did. I feel like Simon was constantly the one apologizing for things that like he really didn't need to apologize for. I do understand that Simon wasn't entirely forthcoming about everything. He did warn her plenty of times before they got married. And I mean, Daphne just continued to complain and continued to just do whatever she needed to do to get her way. And I didn't like it. I'm really sorry. I didn't really explain the plot for this book, but I'm sure so many people have read it. It's kind of like a best friend's little sister romance. Our main character, Simon, ends up meeting Daphne, realizes that she's a Bridgerton. He is friends with her brother, so immediately she is off limits, but they end up like striking this deal that Simon can pretend to court her so that she can get more notice from other gentlemen, because that's just how it works, because he's a duke and he has a title. And then Daphne would, you know, go along with that so that she can get other suitors, but also so Simon doesn't have to like go to parties or court other ladies and do all of that. A lot of people have been asking my thoughts on The Duke and I really don't want to film a full video because I'm really excited for this series and I just don't want to offend anyone who likes this series. So I'm just going to talk about it real quick. I'm going to put it on the screen, so if you want to skip ahead to like a non-spoiler section, feel free. What I was going to say is that Simon ends up, you know, making this deal with Daphne to not get married, and then he basically gets pressured and roped into getting married and doing all the things that he didn't want in the first place, so it was really pointless. We'll admit, this doesn't have consent issues as aggressive as some other books I've read, like Fires of Winter by Johanna Lindsay, but the consent issues are still there. The thing with trigger warnings is trigger warnings are not meant for you, so if you are okay with reading something, totally fine, but trigger warnings are for the people that need it, and I absolutely think this book needs all the warnings. So the reason I felt a problem with it is a lot of people say that Daphne wasn't malicious in her intentions. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I'm going to read a snippet from the book so you guys can understand why I say that I do feel like Daphne's intentions were malicious and she was fully aware of what she was doing. In the book, when they're in that scene, this is the paragraph that I'm referring to. It says, Daphne felt the strangest and most intoxicating surge of power. He was in her control, she realized. He was asleep and probably still a little bit drunk. She could do whatever she wanted with him and have whatever she wanted with him. If that doesn't have consent issues, I don't know what does. Like, that book, that paragraph gave me the heebie-jeebies and like ruined the whole book for me, and it's really, really unfortunate. Again, I'm talking too long about this book. I'm so excited for the series, but that was just, for me, it was something I couldn't look over. I couldn't look over it. Daphne still should have apologized, and she could have had a bigger character arc, but it wasn't there. So yeah, didn't like that book. Spoiler section over. I hope you guys are not too mad at me for that little tidbit. I love you. I love Julia Quinn, and those were just my thoughts for that book. But if you want to read something by Julia Quinn, I adored the second book in the Bridgerton series. I give it a 5 out of 5 stars. It is Anthony and Kate's book. It is an enemies to lovers romance, and I absolutely adored it. Okay, moving on. I have been talking too long. Let's wrap up these last 2 books. The next book is The Earl in My Bed by Stacey Reed. I do have a historical romance wrap up where I talked about why I didn't like this book, so I will be really brief here. This is kind of a second chance romance. Our main characters are actually already married, and you start the book with them being married for a significant amount of time. I think it's like 6 years or something. They don't live together. They haven't even consummated the marriage. They just can't stand each other. The reason that they don't get along is our hero was basically blackmailed into marrying our heroine. Our heroine does not know that. It was her father who did it, and she had no idea that her father did it. She just thought that like this Earl was in love with her. She had no idea that her father legit blackmailed our hero into marrying our heroine. Our heroine's name is Daphne. Our hero's name is Sylvester, and Sylvester thinks that Daphne is... Oh, are they both named Daphne? Oh, yeah, they are. That's funny. 2 books with the name Daphne. Anyways, Sylvester thinks that Daphne, like, was in on the plan and that she's, like, super conniving and money hungry and just wanted a title, so he treats her like crap. He is so mean to her in the beginning of the book, and then Daphne obviously hates him because of it, because she has no idea why he's so mad at her. They go 6 years of just hating each other and being so nasty to each other. Actually, Daphne wants a divorce, and Sylvester is like, no, I need some heirs, so it's time for you to be a wife and give me some heirs. and that part was just super yuck to me. Didn't like it. There was zero communication in this book. Zero communication. That was the main conflict. If the couple would have just talked to each other, they would have figured out the truth. They could have had a happy, wonderful life, but they just like never talked to each other until like the very last chapter of the book. The steamy scenes were good, but I didn't like them together. They should have just like gone their separate ways and moved on. I give it a 2 out of 5 stars. The last book that I didn't like is Until You by Judith McNaught. Our hero was such a jerk in this book. So in the beginning of the book, our hero accidentally runs over someone and they end up dying. It was a complete accident, but he ends up finding out that that person was betrothed and that their wife was supposed to come like the next day. So he feels incredibly responsible. He goes to greet the wife to like tell them what's going on, and that's how he ends up meeting our heroine. But it has an amnesia trope. So the person that was the bride is like the spoiled brat who ends up like eloping and never making it to London. And then our heroine was her companion to London. She ends up getting hit by a shipping dock. She thinks that she's someone else. She thinks like she was the person that was supposed to be getting married. It wasn't great. Our hero lied to our heroine like literally the entire time. Oh, I forgot to say that he didn't like tell the whole story of how he ran over this guy. Like he pretended to be that guy. Like he pretended to be betrothed to this woman because he didn't want to tell her the full story. So he just lied to her the entire time. And then when she finally got her memory back, he got mad at her. Like she lied to him. And I was like, dumb. So freaking dumb. If you want to read something by Judith McNaught, I would highly, highly recommend Kingdom of Dreams, which is the first book in the series. That is a medieval romance. This one is an enemies to lovers romance that is done incredibly well. There are some trigger warnings for this book because it's like a darker romance, so definitely check Goodreads if you need trigger warnings, but I did like this book. So if you want to read something by Judith McNaught, Kingdom of Dreams was great. I read that one book by Stacey Reid, by the way, so I don't have any recommendations for her. So if you've read any Stacey Reid books and you like them, let me know. Okay, I was about to take my makeup off for this video and I realized I didn't film an outro. I have been filming for so long. So those are all the books that I didn't like. I tried to throw in some good books in between because I do think that a lot of these authors have good writing and have good books, but sometimes you just don't jive with the book and that's totally fine. Let me know if you guys dislike these books or let me know if you like these books and why. I would totally be interested in hearing your opinions. I promised my next video will be much more positive, but thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with me. It means the world to me, and I'll see you next time.